Branka. Thank you so much for doing the podcast.
Thank you, Melanie, for inviting me and giving me opportunity.
You have done so many types of work and you do lots of types of work now. You've been telling me it has always been that way.
Yes, as you know, first, I'm a novelist, published some 10 books and several collections of short stories. I'm an ex-journalist, worked at SBS and EastSide Radios. Then I am an interpreter. I work as interpreter still, active, and translator for several languages. Then I have a diploma as well in teaching yoga. So I was a yoga teacher, meditation teacher for many years. And in certain period of my life, I did all of that at the same time, in the same week, in the same day.
All at the same time.
Yes, like I can give you example. Early in the morning, I go to SBS and read the news and make a feature stories. At midday, 1:00, I have been booked for interpreting somewhere in Sydney. And I finish that, come back home, read or edit some of my work that I have written previous days, or just keep on writing. And in the evening, I would go and have a yoga class, teaching yoga.
That sounds like the ideal day.
Ideal day, yes. Well, it is ideal day. I forgot to say that I am, as you know, a painter or artist. I have painted some 100 paintings in the last 5 months. And yeah, I've been painting a lot lately.
A lot. More now.
Yeah, more now. Yes. Yes. Pardon me. Look what happened. Sad story. Actually, my brother got ill last year and I went to Europe to spend some time with him. And I was in the middle of the novel, my 11th or 12th novel writing. And I left Sydney and went to see him, spent 6 weeks with him, and he passed away, unfortunately. So when I came back, I just was broken, heartbroken, and couldn't get back to writing novels. So I started painting. And I never stopped. So I have painted, as I said, around 100 paintings and in some online galleries, or I'm preparing, I have some ideas about several exhibitions. And then, a publisher nudged me to finish that novel. And so I have 2 novels upcoming. And as you know, I teach creative writing. And, I have a public talks mainly in Mossman Library or Harry Carter bookstore. Upcoming one in July, which will be a poetry and literary evening in Harry Hartog, where everyone would have a chance to read something or little poem or some sort of prose or, yeah.
Everyone can.
I mean, it's a time frame is 2 hours and it'll be ongoing basis once a week, once a month, sorry. So yes, like people, they contact me and they say, I'd like to read my poem or, my piece of writing. So of course I will select every time several, up to maybe 10 people that they will have chance to read. And then next time, next 10 people. That's the concept.
Amazing.
Yeah.
You're encouraging lots of people to write, be it with the classes and with these social gatherings. Are you saying that it's important for people to continue telling stories in this day and age?
Yeah, right. Well, it's always important. That's how we connect with the world. We tell our stories for very different, very various reasons. And I'm a storyteller, and I can tell you that this is a way how you communicate with yourself, with the world around you, and everyone. I think everyone actually can do it in their to their own knowledge or to their own passion. I do encourage people. I do encourage exceptionally young people to write and to read as well. That's why I run writing courses. Look, in today's age and time, we live in this era of the internet and so it's important to write. It's important to keep that skill. What I teach is usually I'm teaching how to connect with inner voice, how to connect to the soul, because there are various level of writings, and the way I write, the way I express myself is that way that I want to connect. And I am in contact, like even with my paintings, and that's your inner world, that awaken your inner world, your intuition, your inner knowledge, and, then see what comes out of. Yeah.
You're looking within, and you are also a yoga teacher.
Yes.
Do you see that people in general need to look within more after we are always seeing so much in the
Yeah.
outside world?
I think generally we are living in the world where we look up so much. We look up to some music industry, and we're all the time bombarded by various information and trivial things. So we don't really have time to sit down and ask questions or listen to your inner needs, and we're rushing, and we're neglecting that part of ourselves, which is, essentially the most important part of the structure. If you are not in contact with yourself, then with what are you in contact with? If you're not sure about who you are, then you can be misled. And in today's world, we can be easily misled. Again, as we say, with social media is not a real thing. Social media is a place where we are a small portion of who we are, and usually we present that small part in the best light.
We have to. And it's nice hearing that from you, because you have been a public person on radio and as a writer, and I have been public in other ways. We know you don't want your entire life to be online. And now people are going onto the internet. Some people put everything on, but I don't think that many people do. So people browse social media and they think that is everything, but it's not, is it?
Yeah. I mean, it's in a way, it's a dangerous thing as well, because you never know what you are putting out and who is looking at it. As you say, being a public person, you have to guard yourself as well, because sharing things that are really deeply personal, I don't recommend that to anyone, because in the end, really, you don't know where does that end, who has an access. I do post quite a lot about, especially my paintings. I do post and, certain things as anyone else. There are perils in all of that. I think we have to guard ourselves, guard our kids from posting too much. And as I say, it's unreal for me. I like real contact. I like people. I like sit with someone, talk, and you know, social media is a fantasy world. Even though I like fantasy world, like when I paint my fantasy worlds, really. But the reality of daily life, the reality of connecting to people, it's something on different level than what is in social media.
I see where you're coming from. I like to share what I can with people, and it's nice if someone is far away, but we can't show everything. And often people eventually realize there's more happening than what they saw on the internet.
Yeah, always. That's what I said. Like, we want to present only the good days, bad days. We have all area of emotions, and so can't be always that we're just happy there, and beautiful things are happening, and you always have the best haircut, you always have everything of the best, and that's not true. Yeah. So it's for me, it's a secondary thing.
And we'll look at the painting more. The radio,
Mhm.
that's something to look at because lots of people want to be on a podcast, to make a podcast, and it
Mhm.
feels a little bit similar to talking in audio. I'm wondering,
Yeah.
what were the early things you needed to keep in mind when you were starting to talk in that way?
Yeah, it's a different to talk on radio as a medium and let's say television, of course, because the radio people, they don't see you. So when people have opportunity to see you when you talk, then they get a different impression. They have a full picture of who you are, and it's not like that on radio. So they usually imagine certain, who is that person behind the microphone. But I think you have to be very much more focused. Your voice has to, sound much better or more convincing, or there is no smile that you can, like if you make mistake, you can give a smile, or you can, improvise something if you are, but on radio you can't do that. So I think, especially like stations, media houses like SBS or ABC that are highly professional. Yeah, they don't let any mistakes be made. So yeah, it is much. There should be much awareness there when you're talking to your audience. Then I think, yeah,
Be aware and have the clarity and try not to make mistakes.
yes,
It was definitely more strict in traditional media. Of course,
yes.
these days people are doing live sessions of all
Yes.
sorts.
Yes. And as I say, it's much more flexible nowadays. And then journalism is something completely different. Today we have those, how do we call them? Like citizen journalists. Yeah. And we have a podcasters who are actually in completely different profession. And they just decide, and they might be, and they are, a lot of them, they are just gifted, orators, talkers, and they, interesting, they find interesting people, and then they just run their own, little media outlet. So, it's much more flexible nowadays.
It is.
Yeah.
It's so much more flexible. There's so much more opportunity. And you mentioned, though, that for a while you were doing so much painting because of
Yes.
what happened personally. I'm
Yes.
wondering, although some of us, we like to talk a lot, what I saw in that story is that maybe you didn't have the words or you needed a break from, you were doing something visual instead of a whole lot of words for a while.
Yeah, you are right. Look, how does my brain operates, I'd say, or how my creativity works is in pictures. So even when I write, I see pictures. I see characters. It's just like I see things. Yeah. So that's how I build my stories. With painting is very similar. To me, painting and writing is very similar. Uh, for instance, the last painting that I did, I get up in the morning with this one. I can show you if you want. Show to the audience. I woke up and I saw this beautiful town, all in blue. And I heard church bells actually ringing, and the whole impression, and it was so impressionable that I thought, okay, I'll just go and paint. So without breakfast, without even showering that day. And when I work, I work. So it's not like, oh, okay, I'll work today a couple of hours. It's not me. I work from 5 or 6 in the morning till 11 in the when I want to create. And so I created this painting not in one day, in 3 days. Um, but I see the details, and until I finish every little detail, I'm not a, piece. I think that because, it's very difficult to bring to life something that is in your inner eye, right? There is a picture in my inner eye, in my imagination that are so clear. The colors are so vivid and fantastic. And like you have a palette of the colors and you got to make a certain shades yourself. So if I had that impression of, let's say, certain blue, and I look at what I have in front of me, that's not that shade of blue. So I have to create it. So I'm so keen that I interpret or bring to life every color and every detail that I see. So yeah, that's how my pictures come together. Like the one behind you, that print, they say that's a auto portrait. I don't know. I just saw that woman. I finished the painting, and my daughter came back home, and she's in arts, as you know, and she looked at it and she says, "Ah, that's you, Mum." I said, "Really?" And she said, "Yes, it is." And then I put that on Instagram, and people who know me, not everyone, they commented, "Oh, that was a lovely auto portrait." And it's just not like I'm literally obsessed. I was obsessed with moons and moody sort of atmosphere. So I went out of that phase, and then I started painting little towns, and they're not. People ask me, what are they? Are they, European towns? Are they even Russian churches? Or they're not. There's places that are within me where I reside, my soul, where I, get inspiration, where I retreat to, hide from the world, where I retreat to get ideas. And yeah, so I can bring it. I don't want me to show you. So that's the last one that I did.
That's amazing.
Yay.
I love the gold.
Yeah, I use gold as well. It's sort of a bit impressive usually. I like gold. like
And
gold.
the blues.
Yeah, the blue. So you see, I just went with quite a number of different shades of blues. And so, like, as I said, and I hear you see the little stars there, and it's just surreal. It's something that lives within me. And I like to share that with people. Like, I share my stories, and I'm now sharing my inner pictures.
Your inner pictures.
Yes.
What I'm seeing in your creative process is that you have the picture in your mind, and that's what you are sharing. Whether you are talking about your process now, whether you are writing a book.
Yes.
And that is something people can learn. I trust it would have been the same on radio. People have to imagine something they can't see. And now you're imagining something that will then become the painted final work. So people need to learn. What people need to learn is to let themselves visualize things. Do you think it really takes a moment? We have to take the time to stop and see things.
Yeah, I think that can be learned. A lot of people are born with that, ability to visualize, to get in contact with inner voices, but it can be learned as well, like through visualization, techniques of visualizations, or even meditation that widens, your, I always had these pictures, even when I was very young, or maybe child. I saw everything in pictures. And like when I write, it's, as I said before, very similar, but I see my characters, they appear. I sometimes mention something that it's probably describes that process the most. Maybe 10 years ago, I was writing for a Dutch online literary magazine. I was writing the various, creative pieces like poetry and essays, short stories. So I had a written short story called Pia's Poem. Pia is, of course, woman's name. I have written that short story, and it was quite popular. A lot of comments underneath that story. She was a poet, the woman, and sort of very mysterious and moody character. And I'm old school person. I don't talk in words, but I rather talk in pages. There are people that say how many words this or that has. I say I don't know. I can tell you in pages. So that was some 10 to 12 pages. It's A4, and of course, when I published it, it was done, finished story, but it was not really, because after that, I had that woman who used to visit me in my dreams. Early in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, usually she would come to my mind or from inside telling me, please finish my story. Let's finish that story. And I saw her features, and she was quite beautiful, striking, dark head and beautiful green eyes. So, and she kept on pressing me. It was the winter season, like now, and I thought, I'm not going to get up now and write. No, I want to stay, because 4 o'clock usually time when I write, 5. And I just continued. And one day I thought, I wonder what does she want from me. Obviously, this is not going to stop. And I sat at my laptop, and took me 550 pages.
Wow.
Yeah. That she just stood there and narrated the story. And of course, it's not one woman's story. So there appeared other characters. And so it was like, it's such an intense period when I was writing that novel that's called The Dethroned. And as I say, 550 pages later, she left.
Was that recently?
Yeah, that was a few years ago. Yeah, I don't remember when Dethroned was published. I think in 2018. So it was probably the same year, because I even big books I tend to finish very quickly, like in a few months. As I said before, when I write, it's obsession. It's not what average human does. I get up in the morning quickly, eat something, or have my chai, and after that I work entire day,
The whole day.
the whole day. And if I have time for it, I eat. If I don't, people, they say, you never put weight. Well, I don't have time to put weight on.
Because you're so focused on your work.
Yes.
I can relate to that so much. There are some days I'm just having sourdough and coffee and just doing things. So sometimes you're just absorbing your work more than food.
Look, it's sort of my world, and I like being in that world. I do socialize. I'm not antisocial.
Very social,
person.
yes.
Yeah, I am social, but pardon me, I'm a social person. But I love solitude as well. And I love being by myself, because then I do create what I want to. We are all creative people. Human is creative species. And, I create all these worlds, I think beautiful for me, you know, through these paintings and the words. And I enjoy it myself. And, selfishly, I can say a lot of things I create just because of myself, for myself. Like I used to say before, I write for myself. But no, I write now for audience as well, because, I see people like my books, or now, with paintings, I see as well people like some of my paintings. So I think of others as well. But look, I immerse myself there, and I love being there. And that's how it is easy to, write and lose myself 10 hours in such activities.
It sounds like it's okay for someone to get obsessed with some work, but are you saying not everybody is like that?
But I don't think, because we are wired differently. Yeah. I think anyone can do that when they find what they love, what they are calling. I don't even consider my work as a work. I consider it as a great time that I, dedicate to myself. So it's really not work. Yeah, I got sometimes my legs are hurting because, like I have a easel, or sometimes I stand up, or sometimes I sit. Because, if you sit for a long time, of course, you have a back pain then. If you stand on your legs the entire day, it's not good either. So I combine, I don't write on standing up, but, when I write, I sit down, but change different, chairs, or even on the sofa, laptop on the lap.
There's a question.
Yeah.
You're talking about keeping the physical comfort when you're working so
Yeah.
much. It's clearly a while since you started being a yogi.
Yeah.
And of course, people have a
Yeah.
stereotype about yoga.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
how do you still find, of course, your inner connection with self, but also to tie in with what you were saying about physical comfort? How does your yogi past affect now at this age?
And present.
Yes,
And
you're
present.
present.
I started with yoga when I was very young as well. I think I was 19, which was a long time ago. When I was 19. Why? I don't know. I grew up in a town that wasn't too big, neither very small. Yeah, middle-sized European.
Where were you?
And it was called Rijeka, a small town in Croatia.
In Croatia.
Yeah, and it was in summer great place, but apart from summer, it was a boring place. Not much to do, to be honest. So someone brought yoga, and I was always curious. I always had a curious mind. Like I started reading Dostoyevsky when I was 12. Because I really wanted something deep and substantial. And like someone told me like about yoga, like, "Oh, I think you would like that." So that's how I found actually yoga, and I did yoga there for quite a number of years with the same yoga teacher. And then I came to Sydney in early 90, and, I came with a solid English, but, it's hard when you come. It's a different world. You don't know where to find a job and what kind of job. And, if English is not your first language, then you can't work in journalism, for instance, or you can write in different language. So I was thinking, what shall I do? In a way, I was lucky because I was one of those migrants that I wasn't in the position that I have to go to work, which was great. So I thought, well, what shall I do now? And then I thought, no, I might enroll into some sort of yoga teaching course because that was what interested me back then. And that was the time when I had enough time for myself. And that's what I did. And I called it Yoga Institute, something like that. That lasted a couple of years. And I got a yoga diploma of yoga teacher, and I opened first. That was actually first yoga studio in the city. It was in York Street, and I was teaching there for a few years. Then I got a job at SBS, and that's a serious job in terms of making even money, because, as I said, I was migrant, and you need money to live, and it was much more serious job. But I kept on teaching people, and I kept on doing yoga because I discovered that it's really helpful technique for everything. I was young back then, so as a young person, you don't have health issues. I never had, and I discovered this is fantastic discipline to keep you healthy, keep you fit, curious as well. That beautiful techniques that you can, that help you and show you how to get in, like meditations, and how to find a peace in the busy world. So I kept this discipline because look, I'm very sort of, I can't say a regimental person, but I like this. Yeah. So because if you are right, a professional, you need, say, I got to finish this novel, or especially when editing is in question, it's something that's boring. You have to have discipline to sit every day, and the yoga gives me that. So how do I keep myself healthy or in good shape for that kind of work, long hours of writing and painting? Yeah, I do have a break in the evening, and I do my yoga stretchings, and I calm my mind. There's not much need calming my mind. If you paint the whole day, that's already meditation. But yeah, I use these techniques to keep me in a better shape and my mind sharper.
So you still do a physical practice even now?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. Yeah, as I say, like sometimes I feel, oh, that's too much stress on my back, and I know how to release the pain, or just make myself feeling better, ready to go to have a peaceful night.
Absolutely. It's inspiring to know that the yoga practice helped you when you were in media and even
Yes.
afterwards. It
Yes.
really helped.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially in the media, like it's a stressful job. Yeah. Especially with the deadlines and especially if there's a live program and yeah, I think meditation always, I can't say helped me, but was a great tool. Was a great tool to keep me focused and not really stressed out.
Do you think people need a variety of tools then when work is stressful?
Yeah, it is individual. I don't say that yoga probably would work for everyone. I don't know. Like the yoga when I was teaching yoga, there were people who would be delightful that they found yoga and they say it really helped. And there were people who were not. That wasn't right vehicle for them. And they would say, "Oh, I only have people that say it's boring." Like, I don't know what they want. Like all relaxation people, they fall asleep. And you have in there and say, yeah, all right, we can go home now. Yeah, it's not for everyone. Some people find different things. Some people they like pub.
The
Have a
pub.
couple of beers or something. There are various techniques from the east or west, so it doesn't matter. Like people they like Tai Chi, and they find that, oh, that's right. And then some people they like running, but you know, as long as you find something that works for you, I'd say. Yeah, even painting. Some people paint, and I think painting actually is a great tool to yourself and to express yourself, to meditate. Yeah, yeah. It really helped me to go through there, only painting. So I feel now, I accept it, actually. I can't say I feel better because with such loss, you never get over that. But you
Never.
accept, yeah, you accept. And I accepted it, and I am now ready. As I said, I have two novels. One is ready to be published very soon, and the one that I was writing when that happened last year, I'm about. So, yeah, plenty of work, and I call it,
It's your time.
it's my time.
It's your time. You look so happy talking about the painting.
Yeah, yeah. It brought out of me something that I wasn't aware this day. That's why. I'll tell you now. I can be very existential in my writings and quite, I go into deep human questions and suffering. And I come from the country where we had a war as well. And, you know, I understand dark side of human psyche. And I explore that and I write about that. And so sometimes the writing for me can be exhausting, can be emotionally demanding, whilst, and it comes in various tones, dark tones often. And then when I was in that dark place coming back after my brothers, funeral, leaving mother behind, heartbroken. I couldn't write. My words just deserted me. But the other thing was, I didn't want to get back into that darkness of. I mean, the novel is not a pure darkness. I'm not talking about that. But
But it can.
there were heavy stuff in it. So I thought, I'm not ready for that. And I'll tell you now about a little short history about my paintings. When I was a child, I painted, and I was drawing. Rainy days at home. As I said, my hometown was a boring place. So I would stimulate my mind and create my rich worlds in my four walls. So one way was painting and drawing and writing poetry as a young girl. And I loved back then painting and drawing. And when I was young, I was thinking that I will enroll in the art school. And, somehow I did not. Life took different turn. And I started writing very young. I was 17 or 18 when I got award for my first novel. And that was a great stimulus to keep on writing. And my heart was completely in it. COVID time came and lockdown, and we were home, and I live with my daughter, the two of us, and cat Mia. Probably she will visit. And my daughter said, "Mom, let's start painting together." So she bought a canvases and paint, and I was reluctant because I was back then I was writing a book in English and book translating one book in Serbian language, which was published in Serbia. So two books were happening back then. And I said to her, no, I have too much work. I don't want to. So we just kept these canvases somewhere and paint. And so 5 months ago, when I came back to Sydney, my beautiful home, one morning I got up and I thought, where did she put this canvases and paint? Just that, And I found it and started painting. After that, day after day, and then these vivid pictures that I said that I have. In that period when my brother passed away, or when I came back home, internally nothing was happening. It was like a deserted land inside, just sadness. And I didn't have my beautiful dreams that I usually have, very colorful dreams. It was a barren land, very, very bleak. And I would just get up very sad in the morning and unmotivated to write, unmotivated to do anything. And, so I can't say I had any picture and then say, oh, okay, I want to put that in canvas. I had nothing there. I was sort of numb. But, I had the idea. I thought, where are those canvases and paints? So I took first canvas out, sit on the kitchen table, actually. And I started doing it and, putting it online, my Instagram usually and Facebook, and getting great feedback from my friends. They said, I didn't know you were fucking great. I said, I didn't know myself.
You didn't know
But look, you don't know, really.
until you do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that I am sort of capable of produce something, but, and then, the more you do, of course, the better you get in it. But like I do everything from that level, as I said, and I teach from that level. It's a level of soul. I am in contact with my own soul. I listen to my inner voice all the time. Whether it is my work or whether it is any social situation, whether it is a
Everything.
partner, or any kind of, I listen. I tend to listen to my inner voice, and I do follow it. So it was like with it on the first day when I decided to paint again, and it is now every day when I paint, I just let go, and it comes then what it comes. And then sometimes I think, wow, that's all right.
That's amazing. I'm seeing an encouragement that it's okay to have a writer's block. You could almost call it that. The words were
Yeah.
gone.
That's funny. So now I'll tell you, because often I was in interviews, people, they ask me about writer's block. And I was always sort of cocky, telling it does not exist. It's a procrastination, and people still, I believe that if you write on daily basis, then you'll overcome that so-called writer's block. But I think that was actually not as much writer's block as that deep, paralyzing sadness. You know what I mean? I really barely cooked for myself. Like when you're reluctant to do anything for that certain period of time. But I was just lucky that I listened to my inner voice that led me towards finding the right remedy for myself, which was painting. I wasn't, as I said before, it was like a barren land. I was more reluctant to get somewhere where I don't want to be, explore emotions that were already raw and painful.
It's
And
too much.
yeah, it was too much. So that was, God given remedy to, and then everyone encourages me. Yeah, keep on painting. And then I think, well, I can't do both, painting and writing at the same time. But actually I can. If you split the day into two activities, then I can. But I was really obsessed, as I say, maybe 5-6 months of just, communicating through colors. That's
Through colors. What I'm hearing is that you felt paralyzed, and it's about not doing anything. So it's not necessarily writer's block. It's that people can have a moment of just not being able to really do most things. But then the lesson, and this is something I've learned from you in this moment, the lesson is to do something that you can do, because I felt that way in the past week. I felt like a part of me had switched off from almost everything, but I could do some things, the essential things, but not everything.
Yeah. I think again, that we all have that inner wisdom. And we all know what's best for us if we listen to it. I mean, it's easy to say rather than, experience. And there is a long way to get into your inner wisdom. But I think everyone can sort of, dedicate certain amount of time, 5 minutes or 50 minutes, talk to themselves, to ask themselves what is going, like you're talking as with a friend, to ask yourself, where are you at? What hurts? How can you help yourself? And, so I do have often, for years, conversations with myself. And, like, I think it would be great now to go for a walk down Balmoral. And then there is another voice who says, no, don't. It's cold, or it's too hot, or who wants to walk now? It's nice and comfy. But, then there is that wisdom, the other voice telling, no, you do what's the best for you now. So, I learned to do things that are in my best interest. So I put a sneakers on and I said, okay, go for a walk. Your legs after a long day of standing needs good walk, or sitting, after sitting. So I think that's important. That's my always message. Just listen to your inner voice. And once when you find the right thing for yourself, that's a reward.
Listen within.
Yeah. Listen what your inner wisdom has to tell you. Yeah.
That's the great lesson from this episode. Listen to the inner wisdom.
Yes. Listen to the inner wisdom.
Thank you. I adore how we naturally reached that lesson. And I always ask at the end of episodes, what's something someone could do? And you knew exactly when we needed to give that one piece of wisdom. And the lesson is simply people need to look within.
Yes. I think all the answers are within. People ask psychologists, priests, friends. I think you can work that out. Everyone can work. And after, like a really difficult period in my life, I could have I will keep on writing. But then I rather listened to that voice and I said, I'll take time now to paint. And that was my saving grace.
It was. Branka, thank you so much.
Thank you, Melanie, for giving me opportunity.